From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 10 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. The Electoral College has affirmed that Joe Biden has won the 2020 election. After the states had finished casting their electoral votes, the final tally showed Biden beating President Trump with 306 electoral votes compared to President Trump's 232. The president is still not conceding, though. We'll have that story coming up a little later in the newscast. But first, shipments of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine have now arrived here in the Treasure State. St Vincent Healthcare in Billings confirmed they've received their initial allotment of 975 doses this morning, and they'll begin vaccinating frontline workers tomorrow. Now, this is footage from St. Vincent this morning. You can see Tech Shane Anderson here opening the box, removing a top layer of dry ice needed to keep the vaccine at a low enough temperature during transport. Then Anderson removes one of 5 cases of vials, transfers them to an ultra-cold freezer that St. Vincent recently purchased for this purpose. The hospital plans to hold a clinic at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon to begin administering the first doses to frontline staff. That's in accordance with state and federal guidelines. Well, Q2's Casey Conlon spoke to St. V's Chief Medical Officer Michael Bush earlier today about the next steps in this groundbreaking process.
Did you expect the vaccine to arrive at your facility this quickly?
To be honest with you, if you went back a month or so, I would have said this was way quicker than I expected. And then for us to get it at 8 o'clock this morning was even earlier than I expected it, although I knew we were getting it this week.
You're going to start the vaccination process tomorrow with your frontline healthcare workers. Is that correct?
Correct. We'll be starting with those people that are actively taking care of COVID patients or in and out of the COVID room, such as our environmental services people and the emergency department, the ICU, et cetera. But they will be first people up to receive the vaccine. But given the quantity of vaccine we have, we'll rapidly move into our tier 2 distribution list.
Is that just first doses, or does that also include the second doses, which are supposed to be given 21 days later?
So this is the first dose, and the state is guaranteed that those that we give the first dose to will get the second dose at the appropriate time.
There's been much talk around the country about significant pushback from those who say they're not comfortable with taking the vaccine at this point. Can you speak to that specifically with your healthcare working force at first? Do you believe most will be amenable to taking the vaccine?
So I believe that we indeed will have a majority that will take the vaccine. I will be first in line when my name is called, so I'll be there.
Well, we wish you the best of luck tomorrow. Can you put into words what tomorrow will be like as a day for you?
Exciting, relief, and maybe we can see the other side of this downhill kind of trajectory from the pandemic.
St. Vincent released this statement saying ultimately our goal will be to vaccinate as many of our healthcare workers as possible. And because we anticipate our initial quantities of the vaccine will be limited, our initial efforts as directed by state and federal authorities will primarily focus on vaccinating our frontline staff to ensure healthcare providers can continue to serve and provide care to our patients. Well, a Billings Clinic nurse who was hospitalized and severely ill with COVID-19 was released from the clinic's doors today. Ellen Edlund's fight with the virus gained national attention and brought the clinic staff together, trying to keep one of their own healthy. Q2's Mitch Legge brings us the story.
On Monday, the Billings Clinic nurse who was hospitalized for a severe case of COVID-19 was finally released. Ellen Edlund, who's been an ICU nurse at the clinic for 10 years, said upon her release that she is thankful to be alive. Edlund was hospitalized in late November and moved to the intensive care unit a short time later. Doctors said Edlund was critically ill for much of her time, unconscious, and eventually moved from a ventilator to a more serious machine called an ECMO that took blood out of her body to add oxygen and return it to her heart. Edlund's condition improved late last week, and she was removed from the ECMO machine. Edlund credited her friend and fellow nurse, Kelly Duffy, for helping keep her spirits strong and organizing a Facebook prayer group. She also thanked the entire ICU staff for choosing to keep her in Billings.
So huge power of prayer, but just the amazing care of the critical care team and the doctors and the tireless. There's only a few ICU nurses that run ECMO, and they ship everybody out. And they said, no, we want her here. And they volunteered extra shifts and stayed and did the extra mile so I could stay here where I work. And that I will never forget, the fact that they did that for me.
Edlund is now only partially supported by a ventilator and will transition to the Rehab Hospital of Montana in Billings to continue her recovery. In Billings, Mitch Schlage, MTN News.
Thanks, Mitch. And the Billings Clinic is receiving its vaccine shipment tomorrow. It's scheduled to deliver the first 5 doses to frontline workers at noon tomorrow. As for today's updated case numbers, the Department of Public Health and Human Services performed an upgrade of the state communicable disease reporting system yesterday and was required to be shut down all day, so we'll not be able to provide an accurate picture. We can report 2 more deaths in Bighorn County today, bringing their total to 57,841 for the state. Dawson County also saw 2 more deaths today, while Silver Bow saw another one. More details tonight surrounding the murder of a 17-year-old girl shot to death at a home on Wyoming Avenue roughly a week ago. Prosecutors say the 17-year-old boy admitted to police at the scene that night that he killed the girl at a house party. The teen's now facing felony deliberate homicide charges that could land him life in prison if convicted. That shooting happened December 6th in the 800 block of Wyoming Avenue. In court documents, officers said when they arrived at the house, the 17-year-old suspect asked to be placed in handcuffs and told officers several times, quote, "I killed her." The female victim was found dead in a bedroom with a gunshot wound to the head from a .45 caliber pistol. There was also a backpack with multiple pistol magazines at the scene. Witnesses told police the shooting happened when a group of people were hanging out and drinking inside that home. Those there told police some members of the group were messing around with the pistol throughout the night. At one point, they say the defendant pointed the pistol at the victim. When she jokingly told the defendant he would not shoot her, he did. Then witnesses said the victim fell to the floor. Police say that gun that was used was also stolen. Turning to Chief Forecaster Bob McGuire now. Bob, we started the day with some snow, and you still have some watches and warnings out there on the threat board.
Exactly. Let me show you how much snow we started off with, though. Some places did very well. Take a look at this. Over there by near Nye up in the Beartooth, we had 8 inches of snow. Cook City and Luther both had about 4 inches. Sanders in Treasure County, which is just right next door to us, they had 3.3 inches, and the Billings Airport wound up with 2 inches of snow. And as you see, the Doppler radar still shows a few lingering snow flurries lingering around the mountains tonight. Basically, you've got the crazy mountains seeing some scattered snow showers, the Beartooths and the Bighorns as well. We pull back a little bit and show you that the Beartooths are going to see also wind advisory there tomorrow morning until noon Wednesday for winds gusting to 65 miles per hour. And a little farther up in Sweetgrass County from noon until noon Wednesday, noon tomorrow to noon Wednesday, look for 60 mile per hour winds. I would not be surprised to see some ground blizzards and certainly some blowing and drifting snow across the roadways tomorrow. We'll have more in your forecast in a few more minutes.
All right, thank you, Bob. Joe Biden's a step closer to becoming the nation's 46th president. Today, the Electoral College selected Biden as the winner of the 2020 race for the White House. Michael George has more from Wilmington, Delaware.
The Electoral College has made it official, formally choosing Joe Biden as the nation's next president. The vote took place in state houses across the country on Monday, including in hotly contested states like Georgia.
I am pleased to announce that Joseph R. Biden has received 16 votes for President of the United States.
There were no so-called faithless electors or other voting irregularities, though threats of violence led Michigan to close its capital to the public. California cast the decisive ballots.
We today, the electors, have cast 55 votes, more than any other state, for Joe Biden as president, and 55 votes for Kamala Harris as vice president.
In the end, Biden received a total of 306 electoral votes. President Trump, 232. Congress will count the votes on January 6th. After the Electoral College voted, President-elect Biden addressed the nation from here in Wilmington, Delaware. He urged the country to move forward from the election.
We, the people, voted. Faith in our institutions held. The integrity of our elections remains intact. And now it's time to turn the page as we've done throughout our history.
Advisors to President Trump said he would continue to challenge the election results until the inauguration on January 20th.
We have more than enough time to right the wrong of this fraudulent election result and certify Donald Trump as the winner of the election.
On Monday evening, the White House announced another major personnel move. Attorney General William Barr is stepping down effective December 23rd. President Trump praised Barr on Twitter, saying he's done an outstanding job. Michael George, CBS News, Wilmington, Delaware.
President Trump said Deputy Attorney General Jeff Rosen will become acting Attorney General after Barr leaves office. Montana's 3 electors met this afternoon at the state capitol to cast their votes for President Trump, who won the state. And like most electoral vote casting that occurred across the country, it carried forth without incident. The electors, Becky Stockton of Helena and Thelma Baker, also State Representative Brad Cheetah, both of Missoula, met in a committee room on the ground floor of the Capitol. Chosen by the state Republican Party, they cast their votes for President Trump, who won Montana over Democrat Joe Biden by 16 percentage points. Once the votes were cast, the electors signed certificates that are forwarded to the President of the U.S. Senate, the state's chief federal judge, and the National Archives, as well as Montana's Secretary of State Corey Stapleton. Only a half dozen members of the public were in that room, mostly friends and family members of the electors. Stapleton presided over the ceremony and thanked Montana voters and election officials for conducting what he called fair, accurate, and an open election. He also offered a brief history lesson on why the constitutional framers agreed on the Electoral College instead of a popular vote to decide the presidency. Then later, Cheetah announced Montana's vote.
If a candidate was required to win states instead of just popular votes, however, it would be more likely that he would have wide-ranging support outside his home state. This was a concern for smaller states that feared the domination of the presidency by states with larger populations.
Montana's choice for president is Donald J. Trump, and for vice president, it is Michael R. Pence.
A Democrat hasn't won Montana's electoral vote since 1992, when Bill Clinton prevailed here in the state. Still to come on the MTN 10 o'clock news on Q2, a chance to see the wild for free. Zoo Montana offering free admission for Billings teachers. We'll tell you more about that coming up next. And then later in sports, it may not have been in Sin City, but the NFR still provided plenty moments of excitement. We'll have some of the sights and sounds from Texas coming up in just a bit.